How many of you were at the Olympic Games in Athens in 2004? Let's raise some hands. Okay? I hope 20 years from now, some people will ask in the same room, how many of you were at Panathēnea 20 years ago, the second edition of this beautiful forum. Thank you for being with us and congratulations for the nice organization. I hope that many things like Panathēnea will happen to our region. Next year we have Eurovision in Bulgaria, in Sofia. So let's have more energy, let's have such forums, let's have these things for the Balkans. And more than that, we need to stop talking about the potential of the region, because here we don't have just potential. We have real builders, we have 30 minutes, 3 founders, 3 different stories, different angles. Of course, we are in the Balkans, so we need to disagree between each other, because this is what we are doing during the whole day. This is our mentality, and this is helping us to build more actually solutions that are helping the region. So I will skip the generic intros, so we need no more company pitches. Miljan, you built Tenderly, exited the operated chair, and instead of relaxing, you went straight into the AI data layer with Deyta. So second thing you're doing. Most people would take a break, and why didn't you do that, actually?
So yeah, I think for me, what was always, I think like first thing is like I'd say I never had a job per se. I never perceived it as having a job. So that's one thing. And then like for me, it's always like, I like to always focus on what's the highest impact thing I can be doing now. So for me, it's making an impact. And then, you know, obviously, generally, I felt that no more making an impact was something that was the highest leverage thing I can do. And one thing I learned when doing, obviously, internally and scaling that to 100 people is that once you scale with headcount, you get a different sort of problem. And that's not necessarily where I see I can make the biggest impact, and that kind of the problematics change. And then I think with AI now, what's happening is that like we can now achieve much more with much less in terms of people and headcount, and kind of we're able to have higher degree of focus on the problems that we are solving and the impact that we ourselves can have on the world, on the industry, etc. So I think for me that's kind of the overlying thing. How can I maximize the impact that I have?
Impact. We're all building impact for this region. Thank you. Sergio, you built FintechOS, a global player from Romania. You know what it was to build something from C 15 years ago. You were also in the healthcare. You scaled, actually, a healthcare business. You've seen this romantic version of the region. Where do those stories actually diverge? And which one does this room not talk about enough?
First of all, we are here to debunk myths. So I think that's the essence of what we are doing. Balkans are not what they used to be. Our session has started precisely at 11:53. Imagine that. And I have the feeling that we're not going to fight each other.
Exactly.
You never know.
So Balkans deteriorated from the standards I had about this region. So starting from C, yeah, there is a lot of romance, like you think you're going to grow big and it's like conquering in new territories and stuff like that. And I did, like 15 years ago, I scaled a healthcare business as an executive from like 100 people to like 1,500 people. And then in the last years, we started fintech operations out of Romania and scaled it to less number of people, but higher valuation, hopefully, because we are now headquartered in the UK, and we have offices in New York, and we are expanding in the US, and so on. So first of all, I think, different from what it used to be like 15 years ago, it's possible. It's possible, it's been done before, other people have done it even better than we did, so it's something where you just have to follow some other people's steps. and then it kind of happens. The less beautiful part is that smaller countries doesn't mean that they are less regulated. And if you're in healthcare or in financial world, these are heavily regulated industries. And if you have done something that is compliant for one market, you can't make the assumption that this will be valid in the next market. And doesn't matter how small the markets they are, you still have to have local references when you want to enter a market. That's why I think, and in our case, and frankly for many startups coming from the region, rather than going to our neighboring countries and expanding sort of organically around you, we all go to the big markets. We all go to the UK and the US, and we basically ignore the rest. And I think this is the fact that everybody somehow doesn't see, because it's somehow it takes a similar effort to conquer a big market as it does to conquer a small market. And frankly, I think we wasted a few million trying to launch in the smaller markets before we realized, hey, that's not effective in terms of use of money. So we had to go for the bigger markets, and we were successful in the bigger markets. And maybe at some point, coming back as a UK company to the region would be more successful.
Yeah, actually, we're seeing more and more experienced founders going outside in the States, in UK, starting the fundraising there, having the lead investor, and then when they go to Bulgaria, Romania, or Greece, it's really easy to fundraise, and of course not really easy, but compared to what the local market is giving us. And when we're talking, yes,
B2B.
please?
B2B.
B2B.
B2C is a different story.
Yes.
But B2B is, you don't translate from one market to the other. It's different regulations, different authorities, different people, different big egos, different references that you have to have.
And when we're talking big markets, Angelos SafeSize is selling to almost 400 billion global footwear market with hardware, software, and AI run partially of Greece. So be honest, when you address companies at the tables with names like Nike or Adidas, does we're a Greek company helps? Or actually they don't care at all if you're from Greece or not?
Well, when we started, actually didn't help at all. It actually hurt. I still remember my first phone call with Nike. Hi, this is Angelos from Greece. I would like to get some of your shoes to scan. That was a short-lived phone call, right? I didn't get the access that I wanted. And in the end, what you realize is that this builds a bit of a resilience. And in the end, the big brands do not care where you come from if you have a product that works. So if you develop a solution that works, a real solution to a real problem that actually makes sense and they see the value, then it doesn't really matter where you come from. So initially it doesn't help. You don't have, coming from the Balkans, you don't have this Stanford AI halo effect that opens all doors. But if you deliver on the promise and you start delivering solutions that matter, people do find the value. And I'm very proud that when we started from this initial phone call from Nike last year, we managed to be in the House of Innovation in Paris and work with the large brands that we work today across 71 countries.
Nice shoes.
Someone else to share, Sergio?
Everybody can get one at the shoebox corner, the first phygital store we have outside. So scan your feet, and you can get one of 10 pairs here at Panathēnea. Thank you for the plug.
You need to take notes now. So we all know the version built from Balkans, that we have amazing talent, loyal talent, how hungry the people from the region are. But let's find the dirty version of that. What's the single hardest thing about building here that founders moving from Berlin, London, or Paris generally don't understand? Sergio, let's start with you.
Look, I think it's the fragmentation. I think the fragmentation of the markets, and to some extent it's not only about the Balkans, it's about every small market. The fact that you have to size somehow your market access efforts to the size of the market, and yet that is not what you need to do in terms of solutions. So solutions still need to be different for different markets, and you simply don't have the budget. You can't size the budget to access smaller markets. So I think, to some extent, when you start locally, you understand from the beginning that your market is not enough to build a technology company that grows to be large enough, right? So you have to think globally from day one. This thinking globally from day one, when you start from a small market, or thinking multi-market at least, is something that perhaps is less visible when you start from, Germany or France or Spain or any of the bigger markets.
You said the size. What is the safe size? Actually, Angelos.
Yeah, I think, you're right. It's not that you find your market outside of your window. And my family can attest to that, as I've spent a lot of hours on planes to get business growing. But I think it's mostly, and certainly we see this festival, it's not talent, it's not capital. There's plenty of that around here. It's mostly, I think, proximity to belief, right? When you're in San Francisco or in London and you build something, right, it's expected that you're going to come out of the ecosystem, $1 billion company will emerge. Whereas, if you come from Greece, you first have to start the first few months or years convincing that it's a much bigger picture. It takes time, it takes effort, and I think what these events do actually help young entrepreneurs have a bit, raise the bar a bit higher and look outside of what we're doing within our region and, aim for the global market. And for us, we've partnered now with some amazing partners that are producing 3D printed footwear, but, we want to provide market access. That's what we're trying to do. Builds, the infrastructure layer for the future of footwear, where we can scan our feet and create 3D printing custom footwear on demand. So it starts with belief, in my opinion.
Belief. Milan, your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and I agree with both points, especially the market one, but it's also, for me, it's also, it's the mindset, because I'd say it gets depressing at some point, because everybody's telling you, like, this is shit, this won't work, or what you said, like, you have to convince everybody that it's something that can scale.
That's Balkan standard for encouraging feedback.
Yeah, but I think there's one article I like to cite. It's called like the process of thinking, I believe, and it compares sometimes like in science how it's very similar to improv theater. Because in improv theater, if somebody would start and do something, if everybody would have the same mentality and say no, there would be no improv theater. But in improv theater, everybody has that mentality of like yes and. Mm-hmm. They confirm and say like, okay, how can we take this to the next level? What's the next step? And I think we're missing that piece. And which, as you go more Western, as you go like Berlin, UK, especially San Francisco, I think you'll have more of that mentality. So I think for us, it's like hard because we have that going against us. But I think the founders that do persevere, like they have like such resilience, which you mentioned, that like that's like through the roof. And that's also one point. Like we're constantly having to break the glass ceiling, which is above our heads, and that's kind of regional, which I think it's also like.
Yeah, always groundbreakers when we're talking about
ceiling breakers.
Exactly. I want to skip the question everyone is asking, how are you using AI? Because it gets boring. The better question, I think, is what becomes structurally possible now that was simply impossible 5 years ago? Not faster, not cheaper, impossible. Sergio, again, let's start with you.
I'm sorry, but I don't think it's boring what we are doing. I think we are, it's...
Okay, tell us before our...
No, but the simple fact that nowadays you can do, full... what we do is basically a new era of product ops for financial products. So basically, if you think back 10 years ago, when dev and ops came together into DevOps, now we can do full product management, full financial product management. And we can put these things together. And delivering a new financial product, everything related to customer journey included, everything included to the back-end journey, think of a mortgage or something, used to take months to develop. Now you can do a prototype in hours, literally, with the agents that we are building and probably other people are building as well. So you can do it in hours, Okay, it still takes a couple of months to get the internal approvals for any bank, so it's, the impact is not so huge. But what structurally becomes possible with the advent of AI, and I think we are in the stage where this is getting refined, is the old dream of hyper-personalization, the shelf of one, the market segment of one, the precise product that targets you in your, and you only. And it's not only about personalization to one person, like me or you. It's also the moment in time. So instead of being customer-centric, this whole thing becomes life-centric. So life-centric means I'm a different person when I purchase a holiday, and I'm paying for it with a loan, and I'm a different person when I'm buying a house and taking a mortgage. I look at things differently. You know, I value, you know, I behave differently. So that's why I think this is the part that AI can do. Now, the fun thing, and I'm going to add only one thing here, is this actually, and I'm coming back because I'm obviously passionate with my background in healthcare about health tech as well. This is even funnier in the area of health tech because you're approaching this possible cure for one, ultra-personalized medicine. But in order to approve therapies, you need large cohorts in order to validate your therapies, right? So I think we're approaching the limits of regulation at this moment. And because both financial world and healthcare are heavily regulated, we're approaching the limits of current regulations because hyper-personalization, having offers for one person, having medication for one person, having therapies for one person, is contradictory to the rule of being able to have something uniform that the regulators validate.
Yeah, I mean, I want to build on the hyper-personalization component, right? We're in the footwear industry, that's what we do. We develop technology to sell shoes. And for me, it was flabbergasting that, 24 billion pairs of shoes are produced every year. And the vast majority of those are either incinerated or ends up in landfills. And it takes something like 1,000 years for shoes to decompose. And all this, why? Because we have to predict demand, and imagine what to produce. We produce on averages. And we have been doing this for hundreds of years, and nothing has changed. Well, now, with AI, for us, we have been scanning feet, analyzing shoes, and fitting people for the last 15 years almost. And, tens of millions of feet could have their own specific shoe. So wouldn't it be better to have a shoe that is actually produced after you want it? Wouldn't it be better to have a shoe that is produced on your feet, not on an average? Wouldn't it be better to be able to produce on demand, and the shoes of Greece in Greece, the shoes of Romania in Romania, the shoes of Serbia in Serbia, and so forth, right? And now with AI, we can do that. And we can enable brands to do that. We can enable retailers to benefit from these types of solutions. So, and of course, the one who benefits the most is the consumer and hopefully the planet, which sometimes it falls on the back burner lately, but I hope that we realize that we cannot continue like this. So that's, I think, the AI gift. And it's not about AI features or plugging AI every second phrase you're mentioning when you talk about these things, but it's actually how can you use tools that help you analyze data and build on proprietary data. I think that's the competitive advantage. What we see as moat for us is that for almost 15 years we have been collecting 3D foot and shoe data that do not exist anywhere else. And now finally we can use them.
Yeah, you said an AI gift, but what is the AI advice? You're all hearing a lot, but you think it's wrong. Whoever wants to start.
Let me start because I wanted to add something on this. One of the craziest things that happened to me over the last 2 months was I was, having a beer with some friends. And I was at the brewery and they had plenty of beer types and everything. So one guy that I met for the first time came with me to the bar and said, what kind of beer do you like? But no, actually you're a public person. Let me ask my LLM what kind of beer Sergiu Negut would like. And the machine answered rightly. Precisely the type of New England IPA, whatever. And I never published this in an interview, right? So defined right the category that would fit me. Now, I can only imagine that someday you will ask what kind of shoes would Sergiu Negut like, and then you will sell a lot. So I think this is
and that day is not far away.
And that day is not far away because
The first advice is
what's the
free.
difference between beer and shoes at the end of the day? Okay, so now coming back to your question, which was, if I remember well, about the kind of AI advice that you get a lot of, and I think it's wrong. I think there's a lot of hype around you should throw as much data as possible somewhere, and then let AI infer rules, identify, work there, create basically your LLM, your proprietary LLM. And I think the real business today is not in creating the next proprietary LLM, especially in Europe, especially in this part of Europe. I think the real business today is understanding how to put together, first of all, the smartness of the people, of the 40% of people that are using their brains and their hearts in designing products and in making customers happy, together with the acceleration power that the remaining 60% of jobs that could be disrupted will do. It doesn't work. Data by itself doesn't create great products. Great products are created by great people that read the minds of the consumers and are stepping into their shoes and are able to infer from there what the customer would want, even if they don't voice it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think my angle would be, we have that, like, we should incorporate AI into every aspect inside our companies, like that people should be, like, I saw that, like, the highest token users are marketing people, then product people, and then, like, people are, having benchmarks around that. And I think there's, like, a fundamental problem there, which is, like, people are starting to offload their thinking and understanding to AI, which I think will cause, like, in the long run, I think, like, not everything should be AI driven in the sense, like, in our company now, we're very much cautious about that we have a linear for humans, and it's called linear for humans, literally. We have a segment of Notion, which is, like, forbidden for AI, anything that's AI written. And, I think that's, like, a contrarian advice in the sense, like, we still need to do a lot by hand, and it's not because it slows us down, but it helps us think and formulate what we are doing. And going back to your point, like, products are built by people still, and we can't fundamentally outsource that.
Yeah, I mean, and also not every company needs to be an AI company. I mean, we had an example in our sector, a beautiful sneaker company. I used to wear their shoes, Allbirds. Thank you. They tell me I'm shouting all the time, and now thank you. Well, so Allbirds, I've been wearing their shoes for years, and now they decide, no, we're going to drop shoes, we're going to become an AI, we're going to be called New Bird, and we're going to make chips or something. I mean, not every company needs to become an AI company. For sure, companies can become significantly better using AI. They can accelerate, and we can all improve. But not every company needs to become an AI company. So I think let's not overdo it.
And while we're on that note, what's the one thing that the Balkan builders should stop copying from the Silicon Valley? So, again, we can start with, yeah?
Yeah, I think, like, for me, it splits into two directions. And I think, like, first and foremost, it's, like, important that we realize, like, what we are chasing and what we are aiming for. And I split it into two. Like, are we seeking progress or are we seeking comfort? And I think that if you're seeking progress, I think you should literally try to copy as much as you can from Silicon Valley. Move there. I think that's, like, if you want to disrupt yourself and, like, be in the progress zone and not seek comfort, that's okay. But if you're seeking comfort, like, I think we should stop seeking that we should fundraise for every idea. In the sense, I think there are a lot of, especially like in the small markets, there's some like value in, like, creating local businesses, and I think that's totally all right. And with AI, I think that's possible, that we can even scale and make them profitable, because they weren't profitable. I mean, you weren't able to scale them on such a small market before because you needed the headcount and everything. But with AI now, that's possible. And I think, some people, if they're chasing that, they should, never fundraise. I think that's
a reasonable.
My two cents on this. There are some things to copy. Hoodies, they look nice. In South Europe, flip-flops. they feel comfortable. And overall, everywhere, the ambition. So the ambition of creating something global that disrupts everything and creates a new something, this is something that we're still very short on, that kind of global ambition. So I think these are the things to be copied. But how you create that is different. Because I think Europe is far more socially responsible, talks about ethics, talks about regulation, talks about a pace of development that is sustainable and not overhyped by just huge fundraisers and hubris and everything. So it's a bit more responsible. The thing that we are doing here, even in the Balkans, is teamwork. So it's not about the glorious standalone CEO that has had an amazing vision and is carrying the world forward. I think it's a lot more about, you know, let's build a team that builds something that is strong and powerful and creates, you know, a lot more socially responsible and sustainable business.
Yeah, I mean, I echo both points. I think sometimes we confuse fundraising as an identity, right? You could describe your company, you say, I'm this and that, and I've raised. Yeah, let's not copy that. I mean, let's not fundraise and have it as an identity. And let's not build businesses just for acquisition, right? Let's try to build businesses that actually solve, you know, find a real problem in a large market that is growing and where we can have a true competitive advantage. And try to build on that. And I think if you do that, the other can come. But for me, it's quite frustrating sometimes to always discuss about the next fundraise and the previous fundraise and when are you going to fundraise again. So.
Because we have more time and I have you all here with me, let me pick your brain on something. In the last couple of years, I'm seeing a missing part in our region, and especially the good salespeople. What do you think about that and how we can solve
only in our region
this challenge? Yeah, probably it's historically like that, but we need to do something, right?
Look, I have some experience with that, and I think, you know, our current chief revenue officer in FintechOS is actually someone that we have raised inside the company. But this person worked with 3 different chief revenue officers that were more senior to him over time in order to grow into his current shoes. So I think it's what we have. We don't have that, if you want, complexity of building something that is global operations, and at the same time, the shrewdness, if you want, of being able to run the sales and to fight for it and so on. But at the same time, the best salespeople in the UK at least, which is the market that I happen to know quite well, in the UK, the best salespeople are not the Brits, are the Irish, are the Scots. And the reason is these are cultures that don't take things for granted. And I think in the Balkans, we don't take things for granted. We have to fight in order to achieve something. We have to work hard. And this mentality of working hard and improving and getting into the details of it and getting better, better, better every day is something that if you couple it with enough ambition, then it can make marvels.
So we need more time, basically, and
yes,
everything will be all right.
Yes.
And I think there is, sales is always connected to something negative in our region sometimes. You know, we're a bit introvert, we don't want to disturb somebody, we don't want to, you know, we want to be a bit more social, and we feel sales is not that. I would say good salespeople from the Balkans can be extremely good salespeople overall. And when you find one, cherish them, water them every day, have them very close. It's difficult, try to clone. But I would say we need to embrace sales as something positive, something good. Everything in our lives is sales. Everything is a sales pitch. I'm married because I managed to sell myself well, right? And so forth. So everything is sales. Let's not have a negative connotation on sales. And I think if there's a singular thing that people should learn is how to describe a story. Storytelling and sales could be a bit highlighted here in our region, a bit more.
So I will start my LinkedIn post after the panel, what I've learned about B2B sales from today's panel. Thank you very much. Thank you, the audience.